Hello, welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we are going to be learning Python fundamentals. We'll work with variables and assignments, explore strings, integers, lists, and dictionaries, use basic operators, and practice print and input functions. These are the building blocks for all security scripts. So let's dive in. Before we fully start, make sure your VS Code is open with your Python scripts folder. You can see my own Python script folder here. If you don't know how we got here, you can check the previous lesson where we set up Python environments in Kali. That will give you the explanation you need. Now let's go ahead and create a new file by using the command touch. You can name the new file basics.py. You can see the file here. So you open this. The first thing we want to do is to add a shebang as usual because we need to tell the Linux system that this is going to be running on Python 3. And after that, let's quickly learn about variables and assignments. Variables are just like containers. What they do is that they store data. In Python, compared to other programming languages, you don't declare types. You just assign values. And here is an example. Let's add a comment and let's name this block variables and assignments. Now let's create our first variable. Let's call it target IP and we can name the target IP. Let's say 192.168.1.100. And we can create another variable named port and that can be 80. Then we can have another one named is vulnerable and that can be set to true. And here what we did was that we created three variables. The first one is the target IP and that one is storing a string. You're going to get to know about string later. The second one is the port and that is storing an integer. And the last one is vulnerable, which stores a boolean. Python automatically figures out the type based on the value you assign, and it does that in the background. So variable names should be descriptive, and you should use lowercase and underscores for readability, and that is called the snake case. So next thing you can do is to save this file, and you can decide to run the code if you want to, but since we are not printing anything or doing any logic here, we can just proceed. The next thing we want to learn is the data types. We are going to start with strings. What string does is that it holds text or holds anything you want to present as a form of text. And to do that, you can use single quotes or double quotes. Pretty much that is what we did here. You could see that this looks like numbers because it's an IP address, but we are putting it in a double quote and that makes it a string. But in this case, you can see that we are just having 80 and that means that is an integer. Since it is not having the double quotes or single quotes, that means it is not a string and it is an integer. We are going to get to integer too very soon. So let's try to create some interesting strings. So we can say our host name is equals to metasploit.com. We can create another one named service and name that fsftpd. We can create another one named banner and we can try do this. So when you are using three quotes, that means you are creating a multi-line strings. So you can come here and say this is a multi-line, then come down and say string that spans. You can come down and say multiple lines. Also, you can come down again and maybe create another one called creator name. And you can use a single quote here and name it Victor Akinade. We can add a comment here and name it strings. And inside of those variables, we are storing strings. For the first one, we are using double quote and we are putting metasploit.com inside host name. The same thing for this, we created another variable named service and we are storing inside it vs.ftpd. After that, we created a multi-line string and we are storing that string inside the variable banner. Here, I created another variable named creator name and I added my name here. And if you look here, you can see we are having a single quote here. Here we are having three quotes, but these are double quotes. And this means multiple line strings. And here we are having just double quotes. And what am I trying to explain? I'm trying to say everything is still the same. Whether it's using a single quote, is using a double quote, or is using a triple double quote, they are still strings. Now let's consider some operations with strings. Strings have many useful methods for security work, and here are a few of them. So let's learn some basics about that. We can add this, we can say strings, operations, So you can create a variable named URL and name it anything. You can name it https victorakinode.com, and after that you can use the print statement and use URL dot upper, which means that you are trying to change this into uppercase. So you can add a comment here to indicate that you're saying convert to uppercase. Then you're having the same thing, right? But here you are changing to lowercase. Then we can now convert to lowercase. Then after that, print URL dot replace. Here you are replacing text. So we can replace Victor with target. And here let's add a comment here and say replace text. For the next one, we want to split by delimiter. So we can say URL dot split. Then we add this. Then we can now say split into list by delimiter. And lastly, we can have another one. Let's come back here and let's say we are adding /admin. And I want to do an interesting stuff here and say I want to check if the substring exists. Add a comment here. Save this. And then you can come here and run it. So we can run python basics.py. And if you look at the output here, you can see that the first thing we are doing here is that we are changing the URL to uppercase. And that happened here. The second thing is we are changing it to a lowercase, and that happened here. After that, we are replacing Victor with target, and you can see Victor being replaced with target here. After that, we are splitting. This should be split, not splot. We are splitting into list by delimiter. And if you see here, you can see that it is splitting our URL into a list. A list is just like an array, and then it is adding comma as the delimiter. After that, we are checking if admin exists as a substring, and it is returning true that the substring exists. That's all for strings. We can now move to integers and floats, that is numbers. Integers are whole numbers, while floats are decimal numbers. Let's see what that looks like. Here you can have numbers as the comment, and let's say we are creating a new variable named port number, and we are setting that to 443. Let's say it's HTTPS. Then we are having timeout to be say 5.5. Then we are having max attempt to be 10. Now let's do some math operations. So here we can say total ports is equals to the port number we declared earlier. We can add 1000 to that, and we can say half timeout is equals to the timeout variable divided by 2. Then we can say ports squared, square our port number here. And to do that, you're going to use two asterisks, and you add 2 to it because you are squaring. After that, we can print all the values. We can print total ports. We can print half timeout, and you can print port square. And if you look here, you can see that we are not adding any quotes, whether single or double, when we are printing any of the variables we've declared earlier. And that is because we want to print their value directly, not that we want to print them as string. If I'm adding double or single quotes here, then definitely I want to print out this as a string, this as a string, and this as a string. That is, it won't print out their respective values, right? So I can try to comment this out so that doesn't run again. Then I will save it, and I can come here and try to run my code again. Now you can see here we are having 1000 plus 443 because our port number is 443, and we are having 1000 and 443. Here we are having timeout divided by 2. 5.5 divided by 2 is 2.75, and here we have port numbers equals 443, and port squared will be 196,249. So that's all about integers and floats. So here I can comment these out again. Next, let's consider lists. And lists are ordered collections. They store multiple items in order. They are incredibly useful for security scripts as well. Now let's consider a few examples. Comment here and name these lists. Let's create the first variable that would store our list. So we can say target host. That means we're having more than one host. Then we can create a list. To create a list, we are going to use the scale braces. Here you cannot type the list of the IP address. Let's say I'm using 192.168.1.1, and here you can use comma to separate them. Then you add the second one, 192.168.1.2. Now I've added the last ones. Next, I can create another variable named ports to scan. Then I can add number of the ports here too in a list. And I can create another one named mixed list in case I want to mix a list together. So I can have scan as a string, then have 80 as an integer, then have true as boolean, then have 3.14 as a float. Here we should have a comma here. And this is how to create lists. Now we have three different types of lists. We have one filled with strings, another one filled with integers, and the last one is a mixed one. Now let's try to access the list items by index. And do not forget, in Python, index starts at 0. So to access that, I can say print, then I will say target host. Here, if I want to access the first value in the target host list, I will type 0. Then here we can add a comment here and say first item. This should be print. Then next we can have ports to scan. Let's say we want to access the third value. We can add 2 because it starts at 0. And here I can add third value or third item. After that, I can add another one, let's say for target host again, and I want to access the last item. So for the last item, I can use -1. So -1 will pick it from the back. And you might be wondering, why is it not -0? Because 0 does not have a negative value, right? So it is -1 that we use. For target host, you can say 0, 1, 2, right? So instead of using 2, you can use -1 to access this from the back. You can save this and then try to run it here. Now the first thing is that we are picking the first item. You can see the first item here. After that, for the port to scan, we are picking the third item. You can see the third item here. And here we are picking the last one, which is the one from the back. By using -1, you can see that here too. Another thing we can do after that is by adding to our already created lists. We can add a comment here, adding to list. And to add to a list, we use the keyword called append, and this is how to use it. Then we can say target host dot append. Then you're going to add the IP address we want to add to the list here. After that, you can print target host, then save this. Now come here again and rerun it. Now we are having a modified list. You can see the 192.168.1.4 that we just added. Another interesting thing we can do is to get the length of a particular list. And to do that, you can use print. Let's add a comment here, list length. So to get the length, you can use print, then you use len keyword, and you include the list that you want to get its length. Here you can come back again and try to run this. And now you can see that the value for that is 5. So if you come to port to scan here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can see that we're having 5 values for port to scan. Now let's move to dictionary. And for dictionary, because of the length of the video, I will just type the code and add it here. This is where the code starts from. You can see it. So from here, we are creating a dictionary named host info. And dictionary uses curly braces. As you can see here, it uses curly braces. And inside the dictionary, we are going to be having key and their respective value. It's just like saying name, Victor, career, cybersecurity, something like that. Inside the dictionary, we are having IP as the key, then we are having this as the value. We are having host name as the key, then we are having metasploitable as the value. OS as the key, Linux as the value. And the same thing for open ports. Here we are having open ports as the key, and the value here is a list containing 3 items. Now to access the values in our dictionary, what you can do is to use print, then you type the name of the dictionary and the key name. Instead of using 0, 1, 2, 3 as we did for list, you can just type the key name here. Also here you can type print host info and you type the key name. So it's going to get the respective value for host info here for you, which is metasploitable. And if you want to add new key value pairs, what you just need to do is to type host info, then vulnerability, you type the key you want to add, and you set it to the value you want it to have. So the value we want to store in it is vs backdoor, and here you can bring the host info. Also, you can check if a key exists, and this is how to check that. Here we are checking if key OS exists inside host info, and if it does, we are going to print OS detected with the value for the OS key. Now let's clear our terminal here and try to run this. But before we run it, let's try to comment everything on our list so that doesn't come up again. You save the file, then you come back here to run our code. Now, if you check our code again, we are printing the value for key and the value is this. You can see the output here. Also, we printed for host name. You can see host name is metasploitable and you can see it here. And after that, we decided to add another key and value inside our dictionary. And if you check here, you can see the new one we just added here, vulnerability, which is equals to vsftpd backdoor. After that, we wrote an if statement to check if the key OS exists in our dictionary. And here we can see that it has detected key OS and the value is Linux. So that is how we use dictionary. Let's comment these two. And let's consider basic operators and comparison logic in Python. To do that as well, I'm going to write the code, and this is the code. And here we are printing port number is equals to 80. Also, this means not equals to. When you are seeing an exclamation mark in front of equals to, that means not equals to. And this is less than, this is greater than or equals to, and this is less than or equals to. Now, that is for comparison operators. For logical operators, this is true. So it's just like we're saying is open is set to true, which is Boolean, is vulnerable true. If you want to print is open and is vulnerable, that means that both must be true, right? If is open is true and is vulnerable is true, then you are going to get true. For the next one, you are printing is open or false, and this means that at least one must be true. Either is open is true or false is true. And we can see that is open is true. So you're going to get in the positive value. Lastly, here we are printing not is open, and since it's open is true and we are printing not is open, that means it's going to be false. So we can save this and try to run it to see what the result looks like. Let's clear our screen first, then run it again. Now you can see that everything is true until we have false here. Single equals to means you are assigning value, and double equals to means you are comparing them. Now let's comment this and move to input function. Input function helps us to get data from the user. We often use it when building interactive security tools. So we can clear our screen here. Now I can add the code for input function here. And here you can see target is equals to input this. On our terminal, this is what we are going to be seeing and it's going to be expecting a value from us. Then here we are going to be working with that value. We are going to be printing you entered and then we're going to be printing the value that was entered. Here again, we are collecting another input, which is port number. And here we are converting that port number, which is coming as a string to an integer. And here we're going to be printing scanning port, then the port number that is being printed. Now let's save this and let's run our code. Now you can see that it's asking for an IP address from me. I can type 192.168.112.1 and you can see the next line, which is you entered 192.168.112.1. Again, it's asking for port number. I can say port 80. Now you can see scanning port 80. And that is basically what we're doing here. And you might be wondering, why are we converting the value we are getting for port into an integer? The reason is that input always returns a string, even if the user types a number. So to use it as a number, you have to convert it with the int function, and then it's going to be converted into integers. If you want to convert it into decimals, you can use the float function for that. Let's try to comment this. Now let's move to type checking and conversion in Python. Sometimes you need to know a variable type, and that is what type checking means. Also, you might want to convert a variable types, and that is what we call conversion in Python. Now let's write some code for that. Let me paste the code here. So this is for type checking. Here I'm defining the variable, then I'm assigning this value to it, which is a string. Then I'm defining another variable here, then I'm assigning 443, which is an integer. Here I'm printing the type for IP address, and here I'm printing the type for port. So my expectation is that this is going to be a string and this is going to be an integer. For type conversion, here I'm setting the port string to 80, which is going to be in string, and for port number, I'm converting the port string, that is the string coming from here, into an integer here. You can see it here. And after that, I can try to print the type for port number. My expectation is that it's going to be an integer because I have already converted it from a string here to an integer here. After that, I'm trying to create another variable here named number, and it is having an integer value. And for text, I want to convert that variable into a string. And to convert that, I'm going to use the str method, then add the number variable inside. And after that, I can print the type of the text variable. So I can save this then come here again and try to run it. And starting from here, if you check, we are getting the type for IP address, which is a string. You can see that here. After that, we are getting the type for port, which is an integer. You can see the value here. Then after that, we created a string here, which is 8080. And after creating that, we converted it into an integer here. Then we are printing the type here, and you can see that the type has become an integer here. After that, we created an integer here. Then we converted it into a string here, and we are printing the type here, and you can see that the type is string here. In summary, the type function shows what type a variable is, and the conversion has to do with you changing the types using the conversion functions. This is crucial when you are working with user inputs or data from files. Now let's put everything all together by just writing a simple security script. And to do that, we are going to first clear our screen here, then create a new file. We can say use the touch command, touch main script.py. Now that I have that, I can come here and open main script. Then I'll write my code inside. In the last lesson, I taught you how to use a function and how to create them. So this is a function, and what the function is doing is that at this point, we are printing a banner, which is going to be printed on a new line. That is why you are seeing \n here. So at this point, we are getting the user input. We wanted the user to type in a target IP address here. And here we are creating a port list. After that, we are creating the scan info dictionary here. Next, we are displaying the configuration information here, and here we are running the function. So let's save the code, then come here to run our code, and to do that, we are going to type Python, then main script.py. Now it's asking for a target IP. I can type 127.0.0.1, and immediately after that, you can see our target IP port to scan 6 ports. Then the port list, you can see 21, 22, 23, 80, 443, and 8080. The timeout is 30 seconds, and the scan type is TCP connect. So that's all for this lesson. Before we go, I have a challenge question for you, and that is, how do you access the third item in a list? I repeat, how do you access the third item in a list? Thank you for seeing this video till the end. If you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, please do that now. Also, do not forget to like, share, and comment. I'll be waiting to get the answers to the challenge question in the comment section. Thank you, and see you in the next lesson.